Here's something the lore casually buries under 3 layers of DLC and retcons. Johnny Cage's bloodline isn't just celebrity with good genes, it's a genetically engineered warrior lineage created by a secret Mediterranean cult to breed the perfect soldier of Earthrealm. That's not a joke, that's canon. So here's the question that should haunt you. If Johnny Cage's power comes from ancient shadow magic literally spliced into his DNA, what does that make you, his kid, in the grand cosmic war for every soul in existence? Stick around. By the end of this, you'll never look at Cassie Cage, or yourself, the same way again.
But before we get into what this bloodline actually does to your body and your destiny, you need to understand where it came from. And trust me, the origin story is way darker than anything the games actually tell you out loud.
Let's get one thing straight before we dive into the deep end of this gloriously insane mythology. Your father, Johnny Cage, is not simply a Hollywood douchebag who got lucky in a death tournament. That's the surface reading. That's what casuals think. And casuals, bless their hearts, are wrong. Johnny Cage descends from a Mediterranean cult, a secret organization of warriors who spent generations selectively breeding humans capable of channeling a rare form of shadow energy. Think about that for a second. While your regular ancestors were farming wheat and dying of tooth infections, his ancestors were basically running a supernatural eugenics program with the explicit goal of producing the ultimate fighter. No pressure or anything. This shadow energy is what allows Johnny to pull off moves that physics would normally send a strongly worded cease and desist letter about. The glowing green fists, the nut punch that works on bods, yeah, that's ancient occult bloodline power, baby. Not steroids, not Hollywood stunt training. Literal magic encoded into chromosomes across dozens of generations. And here's the kicker. Johnny himself didn't even know this for most of his life. He thought he was just really talented, which honestly is the most Johnny Cage thing imaginable. The man is a genetically engineered demigod who spent 30 years thinking he was just blessed with exceptional charisma and incredible cheekbones. So when you wonder why you feel slightly more powerful than everyone else around you, that's not ego, that's heritage.
So now you know what your dad is. Cool. But here's the uncomfortable part. Your sibling already used that same bloodline to do something so insane, so completely unhinged, that it basically set the bar for your entire existence. And she did it as a rookie.
Let's talk about your canonical counterpart in this universe, Cassie Cage, daughter of Johnny and Sonya Blade, and quite possibly the most overpowered human being in Mortal Kombat lore by the time MK10 and MK11 roll around. Cassie doesn't just inherit the shadow energy, she inherits it amplified, possibly because combining Johnny's magical bloodline with Sonya's lifetime of Special Forces genetic conditioning apparently produces something closer to a living nuclear warhead than a regular human being. The crown jewel in Cassie's resume? She beat corrupted Shinnok, a fallen elder god, with her fists, and she was, by MK timeline standards, basically a rookie at the time. That's like a college intern showing up on day 1 and immediately reorganizing the entire company while also punching the CEO through a wall. So as Johnny's kid, you have a sibling who casually defeats immortal cosmic beings before lunch. How does that make you feel? Inspired? Terrified? Mildly inadequate at family dinners? Because here's the brutal truth. The shadow energy that flows through your veins is extraordinary by any measurable standard, and Cassie has already set the benchmark at saved all of reality. No pressure, seriously, none at all. Just, entire realms are counting on the bloodline. Enjoy your weekend.
But what does the shadow energy actually feel like from the inside? Because it's not just about hitting harder, it rewires you. Your body, your reflexes, your nervous system, all of it runs on different rules than regular humans. Here's what that actually means.
Okay, let's get into the weird biological and metaphysical stuff, because this is where things get genuinely fascinating and also slightly horrifying. The shadow energy that defines the Cage bloodline isn't just a power booster, it's a fundamental alteration of how your body interacts with reality itself. When Johnny activates it, those iconic green glowing moments, he's essentially briefly operating on a different physical plane than the people he's fighting. He's not just hitting harder, He's hitting from slightly outside the normal rules of existence. For you, as his offspring, this means your baseline physical capabilities are already elevated above normal human parameters. Your reflexes process faster, your body recovers quicker, your pain tolerance is abnormally high. Not because you're brave, but because your nervous system is literally wired differently than a standard human being. But here's where the black humor kicks in. This also means that regular human problems hit different when you're you. A common cold, your immune system annihilates it so aggressively it almost seems offended. A hangover? Gone faster than it should be. But existential dread about your cosmic destiny? That one sticks around. Shadow magic apparently hasn't figured out a workaround for crippling anxiety about being chosen by fate. Turns out even ancient Mediterranean cults couldn't engineer away the crushing weight of expectation. Shocking, truly.
Now here's the part that nobody really stops to think about. This power didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody built it, deliberately, over centuries. And when you find out why they built it, the whole thing gets a lot less cool and a lot more disturbing.
To fully understand your bloodline, you need to understand where it comes from. And that means acknowledging that somewhere up your family tree, ancient beings with extremely poor judgment decided that humanity needed supernatural backup. The cult that engineered the Cage bloodline didn't just appear from nowhere, they were responding to something. The existence of realms like Outworld, the recurring threat of Mortal Kombat, the very real possibility that sorcerers and gods and undead ninjas would periodically show up and attempt to enslave the human race. These weren't theoretical concerns, they were scheduled events. So somebody, at some point in the deep history of Earthrealm, looked at all of that and decided, we need to breed our own answer. Not rely on divine intervention, not hope the elder gods feel like doing their jobs that day. Actually manufacture a solution through controlled human reproduction over multiple generations. That is either the most badass or most deeply unsettling origin story possible, and the answer is probably both simultaneously. Your lineage exists because someone looked at interdimensional apocalypse and responded with a centuries-long breeding program. Which means your very existence is technically a weapon. You didn't choose to be born into this. Nobody asked you. You simply arrived, already loaded.
Okay, so your bloodline is a weapon, your origin is a conspiracy, and your family is basically a defense program. Great, but what about the man himself? Because Johnny Cage's actual character arc explains a lot about what kind of father and what kind of burden you're inheriting.
Here's something the casual Mortal Kombat fan frequently overlooks while giggling at Johnny's sunglasses and quippy one-liners. Johnny Cage has one of the most genuinely compelling character arcs in the entire franchise. He starts as a joke, literally, an actor who nobody takes seriously, fighting in a death tournament partly for publicity reasons. He's comic relief. He's the guy you pick when you want to feel good about yourself. And then, gradually, across multiple games and timelines, Johnny Cage transforms into something else entirely. He becomes the heart of Earthrealm's defense. He becomes the one who holds the team together when everything falls apart. He becomes, improbably and somewhat reluctantly, a hero. But here's the tragic element for you as his child. By the time Johnny Cage fully becomes the person he was always genetically destined to be, he's accumulated a lifetime of trauma, failed relationships, and the psychological toll of watching people he loves die in interdimensional warfare. The version of Johnny you inherit as a parent is a man who learned love and sacrifice at an extremely steep price. His warmth is real, his humor is a coping mechanism. The jokes are how he processes having watched friends get murdered by sorcerers on multiple occasions. So yes, you have a father who loves you unconditionally. You also have a father who is quietly haunted by things no therapist is remotely qualified to address.
And we haven't even talked about your mother yet, because Sonya Blade brings something to this equation that's arguably more impressive than any shadow energy. And it goes a long way toward explaining why you are the way you are.
Assuming the canonical parentage, your mother is Sonya Blade, and she deserves her own chapter because she is an entirely different kind of extraordinary. Sonya has no shadow energy, no magical bloodline, no divine heritage. She is a regular human being, exceptionally trained, militarily disciplined, tactically brilliant, who operates in the arena as literal gods and undead sorcerers, and wins through sheer refusal to accept that the odds are relevant. That is arguably more impressive than the shadow energy. Johnny can glow green because his DNA was preloaded with supernatural power. Sonya punches Outworld generals in the face because she decided to, and she's been training since she was a teenager, and she simply does not acknowledge the concept of defeat. What this means for you, genetically and philosophically, is profound. You carry both the supernatural and the human, the shadow energy from your father, the unbreakable willpower from your mother. Cassie demonstrates what happens when you fully integrate both of those inheritances, and the result is someone who beat a fallen elder god with a combination of magical fists and the specific Sonya Blade energy of being absolutely done with this nonsense. Your mother proves that the bloodline isn't the whole story. Nurture matters as much as nature, and your nature is already stacked.
So you've got a supernatural father, an unstoppable mother, and a bloodline built for war. Here's the bad news. The war already knows your name. Multiple realms, multiple enemies, all of them with a very specific interest in making sure you don't reach your potential.
Being Johnny Cage's kid doesn't just mean you inherit power, it means you inherit enemies. Lots of them, from multiple dimensions. Some of them are immortal, several of them are already dead, but that didn't slow them down. Outworld alone has generated several recurring threats to your family's continued existence. Shao Kahn, the Emperor of Outworld and history's most persistent middle-aged man with anger management issues, has attempted to conquer Earthrealm more times than most people change careers. Each time, your family has been directly in the crosshairs. Then there's the Netherrealm situation, which is exactly what it sounds like, a literal realm of the dead, ruled by a corrupt demon sorcerer named Quan Shi, and later by Shinnok, a fallen elder god, who apparently couldn't handle the politics of divine bureaucracy and decided to go full villain instead. The Netherrealm has beef with Earthrealm, which means it has beef with the Cage family, which means it has beef with you. And let's not forget Outworld's various sorcerers, undead assassins, four-armed monsters, and interdimensional warlords who have all, at various points, wanted your father or his allies dead. Your address, cosmically speaking, is on a very short list of things that should probably be eliminated. Welcome to the family. The threats are complementary.
But here's what the games never really slow down enough to show you. What does all of this actually cost? Because behind every quip and every tournament win, there's a price tag, and your family has been paying it for a long time.
Let's strip away the tournament spectacle for a moment and look at what the Cage family's role in Earthrealm's defense actually costs in human terms. Because the games are bright and punchy and fun, and they somewhat gloss over the fact that this lifestyle would be absolutely devastating on any real psychological level. Johnny Cage has died, was resurrected, has watched friends and colleagues killed, zombified, soul-stripped, and worse, has been through at minimum 2 major apocalyptic events, has had his timeline erased and rewritten, has lost years, relationships, and almost certainly his original career trajectory to a cause nobody asked him to volunteer for. And through all of it, he maintained enough humor to keep the people around him functional. That's not personality, that's a survival strategy. Johnny Cage is, underneath the sunglasses and the one-liners, a man doing the emotional labor of holding a trauma group together through sheer force of charisma, while also punching gods. As his child, you inherit the mission, but you also inherit the awareness of what that mission has already taken from him. There is no clean victory in Mortal Kombat lore. There is only the next threat and the willingness to meet it. Your father will joke his way through it, your mother will strategize through it, and somewhere in between those two approaches, you'll have to find your own.
Now brace yourself, because this is where it gets genuinely weird. Everything we've talked about so far, it applies to you, but also to several other versions of you running simultaneously in completely different timelines, and the Mortal Kombat universe treats that like it's totally fine.
Here's where Mortal Kombat's timeline gets genuinely beautifully chaotic, and where your existence as a concept becomes philosophically interesting in ways that should probably require a philosophy degree to fully unpack. Mortal Kombat 9 rebooted the entire timeline. MK11 introduced Kronika, the Keeper of Time, who was literally rewriting history as a hobby. The Time Shatter storyline brought multiple versions of characters from different eras into contact with each other. Mortal Kombat 1 2023 created yet another timeline courtesy of Liu Kang, who apparently decided that becoming a fire god entitled him to cosmic interior decorating rights. What this means for you is genuinely strange. In multiple timelines, you exist as different people. In some, Cassie exists. In others, she may not. The circumstances of your parents' relationship vary across timelines. The version of Johnny Cage who is your father may be younger, older, more traumatized, less famous, or living in a reality so different from this one that the details barely match. You are, in a very real multiverse sense, multiple people simultaneously, all of them carrying the shadow energy, all of them connected to the same bloodline, all of them navigating different versions of the same impossible destiny. Which version of you is the real one? The Mortal Kombat universe's answer is probably whichever one Liu Kang or Kronika found most useful at any given moment. Your identity in this franchise is partly a function of narrative convenience. Try not to take it personally. Even Scorpion has been retconned 4 times, and he handles it with moderate grace.
So, multiple timelines, cosmic enemies, a family legacy built on sacrifice and bad jokes. We've laid out everything. Now comes the only question that actually matters. What do you do with all of it? Because this last part is what the whole video has really been about.
Alright, we've covered the bloodline, the cosmic enemies, the psychological toll, the multiverse complications, and the frankly unreasonable standards set by your canonical sibling. So the real question, the one this whole video has been building towards, is what does it actually mean to be Johnny Cage's kid, and what do you do with it? The shadow energy is real, the destiny is real, the threats are real, and the family you've been born into is, by any measurable standard, one of the most consequential in Earthrealm. But here's what the games, across every timeline, every reboot, every cosmic reset, consistently demonstrate about the Cage family. The power is never the point. Cassie doesn't beat Shinnok because of the shadow energy alone. She beats him because of who she is, shaped by 2 extraordinary parents and her own unbreakable will. Johnny doesn't save Earthrealm because of his genetics. He saves it because he refuses, against all evidence that he should give up, to stop showing up. Your inheritance is not just power, it's a template for how to face impossible odds with your chin up, your quips ready, and the quiet understanding that the universe is deeply unfair, and you're going to deal with it anyway. So suit up, the next tournament is probably already scheduled. Outworld runs on a fairly predictable apocalypse calendar at this point. Try to look good while you fight. Your dad would want that.
That's the full picture. The bloodline, the cost, the destiny, the chaos. If this broke your brain even a little, drop a comment because I want to know which timeline version of you is watching right now. And if you think there's a detail I missed, there probably is, because this lore is genuinely endless. See you in the next one.